And thank you for taking time out of your busy day.
Of course.
I know that you all know one of these two companies really well, but we'll let Kim explain what SiriusXM is also. I'm John Klein. I am co-founder and CEO of Hang. Kim and I, although I'm running a humble startup, you can read about it in today's Forbes column about us, so you can figure out what we are. We actually allow sports fans to watch games on TV alongside their sports and celebrity heroes. And we're staging the Super Bowl party on Sunday in person with Debo Samuel, if there's any 49er fans, and Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs, if you're Cowboy fans, and Shannon Sharp, if you've ever watched sports on TV, and his brother, by the way, Sterling. So that's what we do. But in my past, I shared some of the experiences that Kim has been going through in her illustrious career, which we're going to talk about now. I ran CNN. I was president of CNN. I was executive VP of CBS News, and in between, I've been a serial entrepreneur. So that's what brings us together. And Kim, you've worked at a lot of big brands. And by the way, I have my phone, not because I'm checking my messages, but I have my notes. We met on Friday and we're already old friends, but I have some good notes. And I just thought we could start, Kim, maybe with just give us a kind of brief synopsis of your career trajectory up to now, because you've worked at some really cool places and had some pretty amazing experiences.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Good to be here. I started 22 years ago. I was a baby.
Yeah, you were fine.
And but it was my second career. It was like my second life. I had dropped out of college, and my parents were very upset. And they were like, "Well, someone's gonna find a job." So I was a college dropout working random jobs. I worked for CH. I'm from Chicago, and worked legal departments, legal secretary. Then I thought I wanted to be paralegal. Then I thought I wanted to be a court reporter. I was just super random. And then my sister, who's 2 years younger than me, I graduated from college. She was going to get her master's. So now Kim has to step up because little sis can't bypass her. So I went to Columbia in Chicago. I was at an art school and went to see a movie. So I was working full time and going to school at night. And I went to see this movie and it completely changed my life. The Best Man, has anyone seen it? Yeah, two people.
Dermot Mulroney. It feels like a Dermot Mulroney.
Yeah. But it was a movie full of beautiful Black characters who were friends and professionals and flawed and amazing. And I saw myself reflected and decided that I wanted to work at BET, which is where the lead character was a producer. So I had sent my resume randomly, mailed it to DC, to BET, to ask for an internship. I was 28, and the woman who got it said, "Sure, you can have it. You can get to DC, we don't pay." And I moved to DC for 3 months and interned at BET. And then 3 months later, they hired me. So that was November 2000. So I've been in this business now.
Wow. I can't believe I've known you 3 days and I didn't know that. That's an incredible story, because talk about following your passion, which is the advice popular. That's what you did.
I did. It was the best move I'd ever made. And it was kind of the theme in my career. Sometimes you have to take a step back, to take a step forward. I became an intern and then they hired me as a manager. Then Viacom bought us, laid us all off. So I went to grad school and became an intern again for the local radio station in Chicago. And that's how I got on the radio. I was a 30-year-old intern. And I haven't looked back.
That's fantastic. And then your career did not end there, however.
It did not. I moved to New Orleans and worked at Clear Channel. I oversaw marketing for all 7 stations down here. And then a friend of mine was at Disney and told me about a job at ESPN, and I was interested in moving, and I did. So I moved to LA, and I worked for ESPN, and then I was in Disney essentially 16 years until 5 months ago today, where I started in SiriusXM.
What were the jobs at ESPN and then Disney?
So I came in as a manager. Again, I was a director in New Orleans, took a step back to get into Disney. That was kind of the theme in my career. And so I came in as a manager on the distribution side, and we oversaw all of the linear content deals. So Disney Channel, ABC, ESPN. And then progressively, got promoted every 2 years. Every 2 years I get itchy. Like, it's time for something else. And so every 2 years I would raise my hand and I would write my own job description, my own justification. I didn't want to give anybody an excuse. I wanted to make it easier on my boss, right? And ultimately became vice president of distribution marketing. So yeah, 16 years of that, but I did a stint in Connecticut. I moved to Bristol to work at the mothership, which was nice.
As an intern?
I actually took a VP job and moved to Bristol for that. Yeah.
So one thing that's interesting about that, as I listen to you talk, is this is the Brand Innovators Conference. You worked at a lot of companies, as I did too, traditional media companies, where those days innovation felt optional, right? Not urgent. That's changed a little bit today, has it not?
100%.
What's the mindset at SiriusXM now?
You know what? It's interesting having been there a whole 5 months, but I was a fan first. I was a consumer first. The great thing about SiriusXM and Pandora, by the way, is that they were first in their respective fields. So there is no Spotify without Pandora. And so because they were Pandora, but they were leaders in that space, innovation is built in, it's baked in the cake. But there are a ton of competitors now. So the speed in which we have to innovate is possible. So we talk a lot about what's next, where do we need to be, where do we want to go. As you can see from a few hires, our CEO is not playing games. She's very serious about this. So we have an innovation team who's focused on that, but ideas come from anywhere. And I encourage my team to think outside of the box, to find those spaces where no one is, and let's fill it. But let's just be part of the conversation, right? So very important.
Are there any lessons that you learned along the way that you find yourself bringing to the challenge at SiriusXM and Pandora?
Being okay with being uncomfortable. I've gotten very comfortable. And every time I get to that place, I start to feel a little like something feel right. And whenever you're going through change, whenever new people come into an organization, it's a little uncomfortable. You don't know their sensibilities and how they think about the world or how they think about the business. But that's where the magic happens, in uncomfortable spaces. So I'm bringing a little bit of that. One of the questions that I asked my now CMO when I was talking to her about the role was, can I be a disruptor? And if the answer was, then it wouldn't have worked. So it's very important to me to be able to come into a space where I can break some things and be okay with that, that I can fail, give my team space to fail, and then get back up and keep going. And she committed that to me, and that's what it's been.
That's really cool. And especially when a person's at a high level, you have the ability to kind of inculcate that throughout the organization, right? Because there's nothing worse than a boss who says innovate but doesn't really mean it, and lo and behold, you hit a brick wall.
I mean, you have to actually define what innovation means. It doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. I think people throw that word around and it sounds cool. So you need to be very clear. When I say disrupt, this is what I mean. Or when I say innovate, this is what I mean. And so that clarity was what I needed to, 16 years at the Walt Disney Company is no joke. And to make a decision like that to leave, there had to be a space for me to do that. And they created it.
It's sort of been impressive, by the way, short detour from Sirius, but the way Disney has kind of pivoted into this whole streaming thing, right? How do you explain that? How are they able to pull it off?
Oh, well, it starts from the top, right? So, what is pushed down happens. What is prioritized happens. Show me your budget. What's funded happens. And if you look over the past 10 years under Iger and some of the moves he's made, starting with that Apple deal, and then Marvel, Pixar, Lucas, they had already had a spirit of taking risks. Before that, I don't know that was the case. And so they read the tea leaves. All of our partners were doing it. Comcast was talking about it. Our competitors were talking about it. Disney had the war chest to do it. But more than that, they had the IP and the content. And that's really important. They understood the value of that. So when they unlocked that vault, the case had been made.
Yeah, and that's a good set of examples of how innovation that grows organically out of the core business is the best place to start. It doesn't mean, you were alluding before, innovation doesn't mean, hey, I had a crazy idea. No more cars here at Porch. From now on, it's blenders. It's not that, is it? It's identifying what you could do better and differently, right? So the applications of that now, you're sort of steeped in a challenge of fan engagement, right? What are some of the things that you're beginning to wrap your arms around there at SiriusXM in order to boost fan engagement, and what kind of progress do you feel you guys are making?
Well, I'll start with the challenge that some brands have is that they only talk to the people they have. And then that's an indicator to them on how they're doing. But then when you come out of that, like you go out a little bit, one more layer out, you're like, oh, they don't want to mess with us like that, huh? So for us, and what I'm pushing, and the company's on board with this, is that we have to go where the fans are. There's no longer I build it and they'll come. And so whether that means inserting yourself into events, whether it's building experiences that may not be in our wheelhouse, but it means something to the fan. But it's also digging into those demographics in a different way. So it's not just Gen X. There's psychographics within that. And so meeting them where they are, serving up content that matters to them, but even willing to, again, get out of your comfort zone and develop content or platforms that matter to them. So it's a lot of leveraging data differently that we've been talking about. And, it's a legacy company. So I get they've been really good for a very long time in audio. But audio means different things. And we realize that. So a lot of conversation on it's not just about having a ton of data, but it's what do you do with that data? And then knowing that it's a heavier lift. Everybody wants Disney. They make you work for it. And I don't blame them. We were easy. We were like, they got jobs. We'll pay for it. These folks are like, I can afford it, but you got to show me. And so a lot of the work that we're doing right now is just really understanding what matters to them and meeting them where they are.
Do you are you bringing in a lot of Gen Zers to work there and help expose you to their thinking?
It's funny because aren't these Gen Z's babies?
Yeah.
Are they working yet? I will say this: we have an amazing research team who is out fielding studies all the time in the space, and we talk about it every single day. There's more we can do, and there's more we plan to do. But yeah, and look, we listen. Just they tell you what they want, what they don't want.
What do they want to? What does it feel like? Because we launched our head of revenue you as here at the Messenger, and we're, engaged with brands who want to reach Gen Zers. And, we launched Hang because I noticed that my 21-year-old son, when he's a huge sports fan, when he watches sports on TV, he's not watching. He's not watching the game. He's on his phone tracking his bets and his fantasy, and he's giving his friends a hard time, and he's, following highlights and stuff like that. I hate watching sports with him now. and so we built Hang in order to play into that experience. And that's why we don't even incorporate a game feed into our thing. But how do you think it impacts, how do their behaviors around audio impact your thinking? Like, I know you've done this partnership with TikTok. That's interesting.
We did. And it's funny, no one would have put SiriusXM and TikTok together. But you know what, Gen Zers, they want community and they want democracy. They want to be able to create and monetize that. I was reading a study the other day. It talked about there's this assumption that Gen Zers don't have disposable income, and apparently they do. And so we should probably stop.
Their parents.
I don't know. They're making a ton of money on these platforms, and so we have to stop dismissing their wallets. And they are very particular about real estate on their phone. They don't just download apps. They want to know that this brand means something, and what do you stand for, and what's your purpose, and how are you showing up in the world, and is it bringing value to me? And if it's not, I'm not really interested, because I can go out and create that value, and then I can monetize that value. And so they just decided to take back a lot of the power. And so we really have to work hard for them. And that's how you future-proof. If you're not interested in that, and if you think, well, we have what we have, and if folks want it, they'll come. Maybe my generation, maybe older millennials, but after that, more.
Yeah. I know you guys are working with DJ Khaled on a campaign that's really cool. It is part of the avenue into Gen Zers to hook up with talent that they really respond to and engage with.
Yeah, I mean, influencers are always going to be a great way to speak to consumers. The DJ Khaled campaign really was about Pandora has entered the chat, right? We have been quiet for a while, and you're quiet, people forget about you. And we wanted to incorporate some storytelling in our advertising. So the Khaled campaign ironically came from a video he had done in his backyard. And so he was in his backyard, and someone filmed him listening to Pandora. And he was explaining why he loved Pandora. And we were like, So
I love those obvious ones.
Yeah.
Aren't you?
Right.
Yeah.
So what I take from Disney with me is that power of storytelling. I know other brands really lean heavily into that. But Disney does it better than most. And so to be able to bring that to SiriusXM has been a treat. So the Khaled spot, which had started before I got there, but I was able to be on set and really see how that came to life. So it was great to see that. And then on the SiriusXM side, we have what we're calling the House campaign, where we're showcasing all of our talent from Sway to LL and others. So, we're ramping up our storytelling. We're making sure that fans know we're still around and that you can get us anywhere. Because I think the biggest challenge I have as a chief storyteller there is to separate SiriusXM from the car. Because when you think about SiriusXM, you think about satellite. And most people don't know you can actually access it through your phone without having a satellite subscription. So we're spending a lot of time talking about that and making sure that folks know that.
It's really interesting. What about we're living on the lip of the metaverse, which is all about sort of approximations of reality or recreations of reality. What about the thinking about virtual versus in-person events in a world like that? Dipping your toe in that water.
I think the pandemic showed us that creating experiences everywhere has a place and balance. But I love this AR, VR way of engaging content and concerts. And, some people don't want to go to it in real life. They actually enjoy the community virtual. So we've been talking about that as well. And we haven't gone as far into it as we were talking about doing it. But it's there. And there are partners that we're looking to partner with to do that. But I'm 100% behind that. My little cousins are schooling me every day on like Roblox and all these platforms that they spend a ton of their time on. So
Yeah, I mean, the thing about any new idea is that it overtakes everything much faster than it used to. And, I'm old enough to know when email did that. I was the first person at CBS News to have an email address on my business card and argued with me that we weren't allowed. Because who does that? So I had to go make my own business cards. So anyway, I think we only have like 3 minutes left or something. Does anybody have a question? But back there. Yes. I was going to say back there with the mask on, but I don't think that would have.
All right, I'm fine. I do have a quick question on running. What's your favorite channels on your platforms, Kim?
So I listen to a lot of Don't Judge. Don't Judge. I listen to a lot of Seriously Sinatra.
All right, classic.
Yeah. Yes. And on Pandora, there is a flagship station called Rhythm and Brew. Rhythm and Brew. And I mean, just like coffee house, laid back, everything you want to hear, jazz, hip hop, R&B. So those are my go-tos right now.
Great.
Karen and John, thank you both so much for a great fireside chat. Quick question. I know we're focused on brand and marketing, but from a social audio perspective, what are you guys doing in that space? Obviously with Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces, I think the next biggest company to enter is SiriusXM. So how are you guys integrating that new concept of social audio?
It's a really great question, and it's a topic we talk about a lot. We are actually moving forward with some things. I can't talk about it right now, but we acknowledge that live means different things to different people, and so not everybody wants to call in and talk this way. I don't know why they wouldn't. I would, right? But it's something we're all over. I do want to spend some time in Twitter Spaces with some of our hosts, so we're talking about that. We're probably late, but that's okay. So yeah, it's really important. I think probably for a while it was like, don't do that. We're live, but the marketplace has taught us differently. So it's a good question.
Anyone else have a question? I have
I'm a big customer for many years. It's interesting to see how my family uses things, right? So I'm channel 70 with Sinatra. Oh, I'm sorry.
Point that in.
That's why I listen to Sinatra. And 42 is when my kids get in the car, and then my wife is channel 50. Being a sports, I'm wondering how you build the sports brand at Sirius when I think of the Sinatra channel, I think of Sirius. But when I'm listening to Westwood One for the NFL or IMG or I don't think of Sirius. I think they're the brand, right? So I'm wondering, how do you fortify your position in terrestrial as the place to listen to sports?
Yeah, it's a great question. We talk about, because I think they tried this before. We were talking about creating these destinations for sports, because we want to dig into even these like niche sports communities, like well, it's not niche, but we don't do a ton in boxing, but we have boxing content. MMA, we think combat sports is a huge opportunity for us to bring in new. But in terms of branding, it's funny, some people actually do associate us with sports when they come to us, even though we don't own the league rights or the IP, but we are there their go-to, either listening to ESPN radio, but they think of SiriusXM to get that. So, but to your point, huge opportunity there, and we're talking about it.
I mean, I know, Rich Eisen and Dave Patrick are my presets on Sirius, so, and NFL Network, so they're in the top on the first channels for me. Cool. I just want to bring it background, and maybe you have a follow-up to this too, John. When you're talking about just the Gen Z market and like wanting to believe in it, some of the challenges that some of your competitors might be going through, how do you feel like Pandora might be set up for that in terms of like being aligned with cultural best practices, I guess. You know what I mean? In terms, I can name them like Spotify. I mean,
She's too busy focused on the challenges
Right,
at SiriusXM to even know what you're talking
right. That's right. You're a leader in that.
Yeah.
But I think you were talking about how you're setting yourself up more for that being relevant and being the brand that stands for something. And you were talking about that.
You know what I love about Pandora specifically? So Pandora is, and we have some Pandora to me always represented Oakland. Like it was very. Are you from Oakland? Oh, you did. Okay. So I always feel like people from Oakland remind me of people from Chicago. It's just that, and so Pandora always led with empathy and community, and we take care of each other, and you see that in the building. They're very much that. And they haven't lost that. But we have to tell our story. And when companies are doing the work but they're silent, the assumption is that you're not doing work. So we're talking a lot about we need to be louder.
If anybody bumps into Kim afterward, you can get her to show you a picture of her closet. Note the footwear here. There's just a spectacular display of footwear in Kim's closet. It's her Zoom. So what you do is you try and hook up for a Zoom chat with her because that's her app.
Oh, my little business.
A little pro tip. I'm humanizing you. So that's
Well, and that's what we're all about here, getting to know each other in the community, right? So
it's your personal brand.
yes, personal brand is important. So with that, thank you both for this fireside.